Welcome, scholars, to Lesson 4.2, Isosceles Triangles. We're going to classify triangles by their sides and also by their angles. And let's start with their sides. If a triangle has no congruent sides, we call that a scalene triangle. If it has two congruent sides, we call that an isosceles triangle. And if it's got three congruent sides, we call it an equilateral triangle. And now by their angles, if there are three acute angles, we call it an acute triangle. If it's got one right angle, meaning one angle is 90 degrees, we call that a right triangle. And if there's an obtuse angle, we're going to call that an obtuse triangle. And last but not least, if three congruent angles are there, we call that equiangular. All right, so now that we've classified them, let's look at just a specific type, which is isosceles. So a triangle, and this is a typo, triangle is isosceles when it has at least two congruent sides. When isosceles triangle has exactly two congruent sides, these two sides are the legs. The angle formed by the legs is the vertex angle. And the third side is the base of the isosceles triangle. The two angles adjacent to the base are called base angles. And all this is illustrated in this diagram right here. It's actually kind of a little bit easier to look at the picture. So the base would be, the legs are these two sides that are congruent to each other, right? And if these are the two congruent sides, the angle down here is also, these are the ones that are congruent to each other, right? So the sides, the legs are congruent, and the base angles are congruent. And that's all the base angles theorem is really saying. If two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite them are congruent. And if two angles of a triangle are congruent, then the sides opposite them are congruent. And so we'll see what we mean by that when we get into those examples. So let's look at example number 1. So determine the type of triangle that is drawn below. So let's look at the sides first. So I have 6.16, 4.1, and 7.4. Those are all different, so that would be scalene. And then I have 34, 56, and 90. Since one of them is a 90 degree or right angle, it has to be a right triangle. So this is a right scalene triangle. All right, so example number 2, we look at the sides again. This time, though, I have 5.11 and 5.11, so that means I have two congruent sides, right? And I have 8.14. Since two of them are congruent, that would be isosceles. Then I look at the angles, 106, 37, 37. One of them is obtuse, right? 106 is greater than 90 degrees, so that would be an obtuse isosceles triangle. All right, so now that I've classified these triangles, let's go into the isosceles triangles problems, which is usually going to be either looking for a side length or looking for an angle. So for example number 3, I'm finding the measure of angle MNO, which would be so M and O, so it's got to be this angle right here, right? Because my vertex is N. So it's this angle, which is actually my vertex angle. So I have to keep on labeling, though, to see, because I have two kind of blank angles. What can I fill in? So if I know that these are congruent right here, that means, so these sides, these are the legs, that means my base angles have to be this one and this one, right? So that means this angle has to be 41, right? So since I know these are 41 and I don't know what this one is, and I know that all three angles add up to 180, I can write my equation. X plus 41 equals 180. So 41 plus 41 is 82. And when I subtract from 180, X is 98. So my angle is 98 degrees. Again, just to recap, with an isosceles triangle, if these two are congruent, that means these two are congruent. So if this is 41, this is 41. So I can find what this one is because they all add up to 180. Let's look at example number 4. Find the measure of LM. So again, if these two angles are congruent, that means these are my base angles here, which means these sides have to be congruent. So if this is 9, that means LM must be 9. And that's it. So using my knowledge of isosceles triangles, I can answer these questions. But what if I don't have a picture, right? With example 5 and 6, I'm going to have to draw my own triangle. So let's just go ahead and draw GHI. Then we can go ahead and label it GHI. And then we can start labeling with the information they're giving us. So they're telling us HI is congruent to GH. So HI is congruent to GH, okay? So that means this is congruent to this. And then MG is 79. So MG is 79. So find MH. So if these two are congruent, that means this angle and this angle is congruent. So that means I can label this one as 79. So H, I'm going to have to put an X here. And I can go ahead and add these to 180. So X plus 79 plus 79 is equal to 180. 79 plus 79, 80 plus 80 is 160. Come down 2, so 158. And then I just subtract 158 from 180. X is equal to 22. 22 degrees. Our last one, let's draw our triangle. So CDE. Our triangle is CDE. I just made it a little bit bigger this time. And it's giving us this information that angle E is congruent to angle D. So let's draw that angle E is congruent to angle D. All right. And then it's also giving us that DE is 9. Okay, so DE is 9 and CD is 18. So let's find EC, which is this segment right here, this side. So if this angle and this angle are congruent, these are my base angles, which mean this side and this side are congruent, right? So that means if CD is 18, then EC is also 18. So my length is 18. All right, scholars, go ahead and try the practice and good luck.